everybody, and welcome back to the summit, Harness Your Creative Power. My special guest today is Dr. Paula Joyce. Hello, Paula. Dr. Paula, or Paula, what do I say?
Whatever you feel comfortable saying. I go by whatever people are comfortable with. But it is a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm delighted. And it's a pleasure to meet you after all the emails.
Yes, and I'm very pleased to have you here today for the interview. Let me introduce you briefly to everybody who does not know you yet. Okay. So Dr. Paula Joyce is a best-selling author. She's a coach, a speaker, a leading expert, and hosts a top-ranked radio show. And she is an artist. Okay, Paula, did I forget something important in my short introduction?
It sounds just fine, thank you.
Okay.
So
we will start here, and I am wondering, how did you get interested in the process of creativity? What got you interested in working with creativity?
I had always been interested as a child. I wanted to dance, I wanted to paint, I wanted to write creatively, I wanted to sing and play the piano and all of these things. And one by one, every one of those desires was negated. I was told that I had no talent in any of those areas. And I was discouraged by my family, by my teachers, and sometimes humiliated, not just discouraged, but humiliated. So I developed a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of self-judgment that I would never be able to do any of those things. But by the age of 50, I was still wanting to do them. And I thought, enough. You know, there comes a point where you have to just say, I'm going to do what I want to do, and it doesn't matter what other people thought or think. And then I discovered, so I slowly started moving into all of those areas. I began with painting, and then I got a lot of positive reinforcement, even sold some things, because I was painting my way, not trying to paint the way my teachers wanted me to paint. And so and then everything blossomed from there as I started to feel successful there with some fashion designers buying my things and people who knew me wanting to buy things. And then it was like, okay, so then I explored writing and I sold, I had some things published, and then I explored dancing and Argentine tango. And so it was bit by bit, I did all these things and got positive reinforcement. So I thought, if somebody who was so inhibited and so afraid and told so many negative things about their own creativity, if I could have this much success, then everybody must have creativity locked up inside of them. That fear and judgment is preventing them from accessing and expressing what's important to them. So that was when I went on a search to figure out how to help other people.
All right. Okay. So you must hear, as well as I, people say, I'm not at all creative. I hear this quite often, and I guess you do too. What can you tell the people, also our listeners, probably the ones who say, but okay, that's true for you, but I'm not creative. Is there anything you could answer?
Well, first of all, I think I like to help people understand that they are creative in ways they don't think about. So, for instance, our body is constantly creating new cells. Old cells are dying and being replaced. we are creative beings at our core. And if you have spiritual beliefs and believe that we were created in the image of the Creator, the operant word there is creator. So if we were created in the image of a creator, we are by definition creative. And so but it gets blocked, and we deny and doubt ourselves. So the fact that we have this ability, but we have been told that we don't, so that fear and judgment, again, blocks us. And so I suggest to people, and also to think about things like every decision that we make causes us to take one path or another. I mean, literally on a road, if we turn right or left, we're going to go somewhere different. Every decision that we make to take this job or to live in this city creates a whole series of events. So then people say, well, okay, so I can think creatively, but I don't have any creative talent. And so
Right.
then it's like, okay, there's a right brain and a left brain. And your left brain, yes, you can be a creative thinker, but you can also be somebody who knows how to create in your way in some form of artistic or creative endeavor. And so what is it that has always drawn you, that you've always wished that you could sing, that you could compose, that you could play the piano or whatever? And so then to explore it, rather than to assume that all those people who gave you negative reinforcement or just made you think that you couldn't do it, to put that aside. I tell them to put the critic on the couch, tell them to have a seat, and just take a break. And because we stop ourselves because we're afraid, but nobody else has to see what we're doing. We can teach ourselves to paint. We can go to a hobby store, not buy fine art materials, but buy playful things, even Play-Doh or children's watercolor sets or clay. What attracts you? I tell them to just walk down the aisles of a craft store, and what draws your attention, even crayons. There are all these coloring books now for adults, but I want some of those coloring books to have a blank page, and to say to people, just create your own. Start from and close your eyes. And if you don't know where to start, close your eyes, pick a color, use your non-dominant hand. If you're right-handed, use your left hand, and just put something on the paper. And eventually open your eyes, and you've got the beginning, because it's that initial step into the unknown, into the blank page. If it's writing that you're interested in, I used to teach writing, and if you do flow writing, if you set a timer and you just start writing, don't judge it, don't cross anything out, don't think about the grammar, just make yourself keep writing. Then you'll find that you've got something, then you revise. But we edit as we go along so that we stop the creative flow. Creativity comes from our soul, from our inner being, from the spiritual realm, from a place that's beyond the logical mind. And if we always want it to be logical and look beautiful, then that's not what it's about. It's about self-expression. It's about having fun. It's about bringing joy into your life. And it's about not letting the naysayers win. It's about saying, I don't have to sell it. I just want to do it. And I can tear it up or hide it afterwards. no one has to see it. This is for me, just for me.
Yeah. This makes me think of the word intuition. How do you place intuition in this process you just described? Are we creating intuitively, or what is intuition for you? Let me ask you this way.
Well, no, I love your question. And actually, Carl Jung, the well-known psychiatrist, said that there are two ways to create. For instance, with a painting, you can create from the left brain, your logical mind, and in the physical reality, and you can plan it out. You can do a sketch. You can have it all predetermined. Or you can create from your intuition, from those who know chakras, from that second chakra, from the flow place, from the place where there's no judgment, but there's just doing and allowing things to evolve. And that's actually the way I paint, is the second way. I don't predetermine. I'm not good at realistic painting. What I've discovered is that my gift is in color, and just allowing and to empty myself of the judgment. I was listening to a composer, an up-and-coming composer who composes now for the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. And she was saying that when she gets a commission, she has to put that out of her mind, or the judgment stops her. Will they like it? They're paying for this. Oh my gosh. You know, and so she just has to put that out of her mind in order to create the piece. And so from her intuition and from her heart, from her inner knowing, whatever words people want to use, but it allows something to come from your own being that's unique to you, that only you can create. And it's an expression of self, so it can't be bad. It can't ever be wrong. And if you don't like it, that's fine too. At one point, I had 3 silk pieces that I had done, and I just didn't like any of them. And so one day, I just tore all 3 of them up into strips. I had never done a weaving before, but I thought, I'm going to weave these pieces together and see what happens. It's better than throwing them out. Let me see what I can create with that. And later somebody told me, oh, that's a pin weaving. I have never taken art school. I don't know about pin weaving, but I took pins and set it up and just went for my intuition. And it's one of my favorite pieces, and it's been in juried shows. So, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was purely intuition. So we can create from there or from the logical mind, but generally we think of painting or creating as a logical process. And so if we can't do, like with writing, when I was in high school, I remember we had to turn in an outline. I couldn't do it. I used to write the piece and then make the outline afterwards because I had to get the grade. You know, but the teacher had her process. You have to do an outline. I don't work that way, and so it's hard to fit into a world that wants structure when in fact there's very little structure that isn't made up, and it's somebody else's structure, and maybe you can fit or can't. And while we're talking about creativity and whether somebody is creative or not, what the studies show when we look at children, up until first grade, they score high on creativity tests. In first grade, their creativity scores plummet. And so what happens in first grade in the United States is you have to walk in a straight line, you have to sit in your desk, you have to be on the right page, you have to be quiet, you have to listen to the teacher. There are all these rules, and there's no room for play, there's no room for fun, there's no room for true creativity. Duplicate this. This is our creative project today. Put an orange thing here and put a green thing here and whatever. And no, you can't make a purple face and you can't make a green sky. Well, why not? If we told Picasso that he couldn't do what he did, look what we would have lost. Miro, Kandinsky, so many of our great artists would not have gotten anywhere if we, and many of them did struggle. I mean, Van Gogh, who, you know, was laughed at and sold one painting in his lifetime only because his brother owned an art gallery, and now $10 million or more for a painting.
Yes.
If he was creating his way, not the way it had always been done.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody who has gone a step forward has done their own expression, as you mentioned, Picasso or Miro, or yeah. You just mentioned the second chakra, and I'm not sure that everybody in our audience knows about the second chakra. You said that you like to paint from the second chakra. Could you just explain what you mean by that?
Well, it's the chakras are an energy system, and they're really they also fit in the tree of life, which comes from Jewish mysticism, and they also fit within a Catholic system that I just lost the name of, but they all fit together. And the chakra system is around the belly button. And if you think about the organs that are in the belly button, around that area, it's the flow. You've got your kidney, you've got your stomach, you've got things that need to flow that are water-based. And so that is the idea of creativity, is from that place of flow and of ease. And where there's even that concept of flow where you lose track of time, where you lose track of everything, and you just engage in the process. And I know when a piece is done, when I feel it's done. It's not like some, oh, okay, now the tree is complete. So it's like there's this just sense of completion. And if I don't follow that and stop before it's done, and my mind, and I'm feeling like I need to do this or I need to do that, and I don't, the next day I have to go back and do it because that piece needed me to do that, whether somebody else likes it or not, or would have done that, doesn't matter. It's this urge and this knowing that that piece needs that, and it's not complete until it's done.
Mm-hmm. So there is also, is it right to say that there is a communication between the piece that you create? Because when you say it is not complete and you have to go back to it, so there is a kind of back and forth and communication between you and the expression of yourself.
Yes, I feel that there is, and I feel that I don't even know what I'm painting, actually, and so it's like beyond my logical mind and beyond my knowing, but it is a knowingness and a feeling, an inner knowing, so that when a piece is complete, I will often find objects in it that I didn't put there and that I'm not even capable of painting. So I can't do realistic, but I've got, sometimes there's a lion. There's one painting that I call The Peaceful Lion, and right in the center there's this beautiful lion. And he's just so peaceful and quiet. I've painted horses and elephants, and sometimes angels come through. Sometimes people. I have one painting that I called Alchemy, and it just felt like alchemy. And years later, I saw in the middle of the painting is a bent over woman with gray hair and glasses on, kind of looking sideways at me. and her back is on fire, and above, and the fire goes into a phoenix. And then in another part of the painting, there is a, I'm sorry, can we stop this for 1 second?
Yeah, continue.
Okay, so and then she's looking at a toddler who is also bent over, and so there was actually alchemy going on there, where there was where she was transforming into a new beginning. Becoming the phoenix, and then the birth of this young child. So these things are there. There was one time I painted, did a demonstration at a couture class, at fashion design class, and I didn't remember how I painted it, and so I was turning it when I got it home, and there was a robin in a tree, sitting in a tree. And the robin had been my favorite bird growing up. And within 2 weeks, there were birds, robins, all the way across my fence in my backyard as they were migrating. So these experiences tell me that creativity is beyond our logical mind, is beyond us as thinking human beings, but it's there as feeling human beings who open ourselves up to the wonder of the universe and the joy of creation, and not knowing. We just can sense, we can just feel. And so that part, that right part of our brain, doesn't get used very often, and yet it is so wise. It is the smarter part of our brain. And we don't have to teach creativity. It's there. We just need to unblock it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I fully agree. And you also already gave some ideas of how we can unblock it. Yeah, when we go into a store and just let ourselves be attracted by colors and just go for it, and don't listen to the judgments, or neither to our own inner judgments nor to the judgments from the outside. I know that you also work with businesses as a coach. You are a coach, as I have said in my introduction. Do you use the process of creativity in this part of your work as well?
I do, and the process that I use came to me in that space between waking and sleeping, and I came two mornings in a row. The first morning was the concept of the theory behind it, and the second morning was what to do to help people. So I think it's important to understand the theory, and that is that we get blocked in 4 areas of our life, basically. As a child, we're told within the family, color within the lines, this is good, this isn't. Your sister is creative, you're not. Your brother's the athlete, you're not. Girls can be nurses but not doctors. You know, we get all these concepts that are connected to our creativity because they're connected to our inner being. And so whether it's specifically art related or just all the you cannot, that you should not, you must not, all of those get tied together so that we create blocks of fear. And then we go to school, and again, there are all these rules and regulations, and you get an A, or you fail, and you have to do it within a certain time. I remember the only geometry test that I did well on was because it was the last class of the day, and the teacher said, today you can have all the time you want. I think I left an hour after everybody else, and I got 110. I got the bonus points, but I got a C in the class because I couldn't do it within the time. So I learned that I'm no good at math, which isn't
Mm.
necessarily true. I'm just no good at doing math within a time frame. But we get all these concepts. Then we go out into society, and society says, this is what good art is. This is what a good person does. This is what mom and dad want you to do. This is what you're capable of doing. And so we have all these ideas that aren't about us, that other people have given us, along with a bunch of fears, and you cannot. So then we shut the door on ourselves because we keep all those ideas of what we can and can't do. And we are good soldiers and do what we're supposed to and what other people want us to do. So it blocks that inner knowing and that wellspring of knowledge and information and ideas that we can't access that are in the right brain. So the model that I work from is based on the brain. The left brain is the logical, sequential, conscious part of the brain, and it communicates in words. The right side of the brain is the creative, unconscious, spiritual side of the brain. And researchers estimate that there is 10 million times more information in the right brain than there is in the left brain. Yet we live in the left brain. And we may spend a few minutes a day meditating, but 99% of our day is spent in the left brain, making sure that, there's food, clothing, shelter, and everything gets done that has to get done. So the idea, and it communicates in images. So how do you get to that? And
Yes.
how do the two communicate? Because the right side is talking in images and the left side is talking in words. So it's like two foreign languages. You may pick up a little bit, but you're not really getting the full information from each other. So the process I use allows these two sides of the brain to communicate, to align, to integrate, and to move forward together. First, there's the crayon, what I call crayoning. I use crayons because the color and the process of using not art, but crayoning, because it can be symbols, it can be stick figures, it can be scribbling, it doesn't matter. It's the colors that get us into the right brain. And so I start with what is blocking you from. And if I'm working with a business, for instance, what's blocking, what their problem may be is communication. So what's blocking you from having a system of communication that is effective, efficient, and powerful. And so what's blocking you, and the left brain is saying, oh, well, we have, and this is a real example, well, we're spread out everywhere and people don't know each other and it's really hard, okay? And so, but then the right brain has information that knows the truth, as opposed to the excuses that the left brain gives us. So when we say what's blocking you and you go into the right brain with the crayon, something emerges that you didn't know. And then you write in order to bring that into logical, physical consciousness. So the unconscious can now talk to the conscious mind as the block releases, because once it is given a voice, it's gone. Okay, now we see it, and now the left brain knows it too. So now we're integrated. We talk about it. We look at what the person wrote and what the team wrote, whatever it is, and what the unconscious mind said, and we integrate them. We pull them together and come up with some ideas of what the blocks are. Then we go to, what do I need to do next in order to solve this problem? And there are a zillion ways that you can solve a communication problem, but what's the most effective for this organization at this point in time, given who all the people are, what will be the most effective? And so you go into the right brain using the crayons, then you go into the left brain using writing, and then you integrate it with discussion. We put it all together, and they came up with a system that to this day is effective, and that a business owner will never start a leadership meeting without using the crayons and writing process, because it was so effective and so fast. That was in, you know, an hour and a half. And they had been struggling, you know, really struggling. So it's, the right brain is powerful, whether it's for a business problem or whether it's for your own creativity. It taps into the unconscious, and it taps into, I believe, the spiritual realm. If there's 10 million times more information in the right brain, which brain researchers estimate, than in the left, then there's this incredible amount of information that we're missing and can't get to. That's good for business, for health, for relationships, for career, for everything, including creativity, because it's opening a blank page. It's creating a new idea. And when I know someone who was high up in the Container Store, which is a very successful business, and actually won an award for creativity, a national award for creativity. They opened up a new store in New York, and this person was telling me how wonderful it was, because every team group, they were all in groups, they all came up with the exact same design. And already I'm thinking, red flags, you're in group think, everybody is stuck in what they've already done, and this isn't going to work. And sure enough, in a year, they had to totally redesign, because New York doesn't work the way their other stores work. But they did brainstorming, and they did traditional ways of that were told to do creative thinking and group problem solving. And it totally failed, because they weren't getting into the creativity of the unconscious of the right brain.
Right. So for our listeners, for our audience, is this also, can we transfer it to everybody listening here? Can we do it? Can I do the process that you just described myself? And if yes, you're nodding.
Yes.
How can I do it myself? How can our listeners go about it?
They can get my free chapter from my best-selling book if they go to my website, paulajoyce.com. And then if you don't want to stay signed up for the newsletter, unsubscribe, but you will get a free download of the chapter, so that they can see how the exact steps, how to do it. And I have clients who do it on their own and will work with it for a long time, and then come back and say, okay, I want to, you know, work with you for a little bit, or for this session or whatever. And I have other people who just have picked it up and can do it on their own. It's a simple process. If you have someone to interact with about it, it may help you see things that you may not see on your own. But if you do work with a partner, then I suggest that it be somebody who is not too close to you, because sometimes they see you the way they want to see you, rather than what's really happening in your crayoning and writing.
All right. Okay, so it needs some kind of neutral view on it, because I was just thinking for myself, so if I have a problem to solve, I could start with crayoning myself, and maybe leave it for a while and come back to it with my left brain view on it? Will this be possible?
I think it's good to do it together, to do the crayon,
Okay.
follow it with the writing, do the what's blocking me from, and then, you know, solving
All
this
right.
problem, and
Yeah.
then look at it, think about it, and then you might want to go away for a little bit and come back to it, or you can go immediately into the what do I need to do now, because these drawings, these crayonings are alive. And it may be like sometimes my paintings, it'll be a few years later, I'll see something that I wasn't ready to see when I painted it. And so you can go back, they're still working with you. Those images, whatever you come up with, again, whether it's scribbling or stick figures or whatever it is, they're still working with you. They're alive, and they're helping you change. And you can get more insight when you go back. So I always recommend to people that they keep it, they put it somewhere where they can see it, but they don't want other people who might be naysayers or might not understand what they're doing. So you also want a private place for it.
Could you share some examples maybe of people or business, I don't know, who have gone through the process with you and talk about their change? I'm curious to hear about it.
Yes, so there was one organization, a nonprofit that I worked with, that was struggling to recreate themselves because what they were doing was not working. It was the fashion design board in the Dallas, Texas area. And so I went through this process with them, and they came up with a strategic plan that was totally different than any of them would have expected or thought that they were going to come up with. They were just like in shock. And they made a plan still to implement it, and their organization blossomed. Suddenly their membership, which was decreasing, was increasing. They were making alliances with other groups so that they were spreading their influence. They were working together with people. They created a whole new, different organization that became vibrant and successful. And instead of having to, you know, rope people in and say, please be president, people wanted to be involved because there was new energy, there was new excitement. So that's one example. Another was a group that was also floundering, and they were trying to do a mission statement, and they had been going round and round for months. And they called me, and it was a coaching group. And within one session, we had it all mapped out. They had their mission statement, they had their plan, they had everything ready. And what happens when you go into that unconscious is that sometimes people even draw the same thing. You're not looking at other people, but sometimes it goes so deep that people are actually able to tap into that same place where creativity thrives and where this organization needed to go. And they were just shocked at the similarity, and that what they came up with was finally what they wanted, as opposed to the months of arguing and uncertainty. It was like, yes, that's it. And then they were able to move forward. So it works in many ways. There was another group that had an executive director that was not functioning well, and they couldn't decide. They didn't want to fire the person, and it went on and on. And so we went through this process with the board without the executive director, and it became clear to them that they had no choice. If they wanted this organization to survive and thrive, that they had to make that hard decision and to put aside their feelings for this person, because it wasn't about friendship, it was about having a viable organization.
Okay, so does it also work for money? I'm often asked, how can I increase my money flow, or the question concerning money comes up quite a lot. Does your way, your approach also work in the realm of money? Can you say something to that?
Yes, and yes, it does. I've had clients who came in with difficult circumstances, and as they worked through the blockages, then things started to flow better, because that money is tied to, the lack of flow of money is tied to other things. And so what are your hidden belief systems about money? What are the hidden fears and the hidden judgments? People who have a lot of money are, you know, they don't care about society. They're just out for their own betterment. You know, I remember someone who, you know, who felt it was not a Christian thing to do to have money, that was wrong. And so there are all kinds of reasons that people, or you know, somebody said to you when you're a child, you'll never amount to anything. Okay, and so these things, we may not even remember them, or we may have spent our whole life rebelling against those, but they're still stuck in our right brain, running around there and blocking the flow of income and of money from all kinds of investments and gifts and wherever it could come from. Or it's only right if you work hard, you know, and so a gift, or if it's easy, if I'm having fun, no, that's wrong. You have to struggle in order to earn money. And so we have a lot of beliefs that we don't even know we have, because we overheard a conversation from our parents or whatever, and they didn't even know we were in the room, or they didn't pay attention or care, you know, whatever. And so we get stuck with these ideas. And then we block ourselves unintentionally, because those thoughts and ideas and beliefs are there. So as you release them and get in touch with what matters to you, I've helped people change careers. And then the money flows. I worked with one man who came to me for a divorce. he wanted, not from me, but he had already left his wife, and he couldn't find a way to say to her, I want a divorce. He was living separately, but he couldn't make that next step. And along the way, somebody, his business coach, said to him, well, you want me to help you with that? And because we were working through the blockages, and it wasn't instant, there were a lot of beliefs and fears that he needed to work through. And so he said yes, of course, because he wanted it done. So she handed him the phone and said, well, call her now while I'm here. And he froze. He couldn't make that call because he wasn't ready. And so now he was humiliated. And so we had to work through that. And then he got his divorce. And then, you know, he said how miserable he was in his job. And that, but that he couldn't leave because he had invested years and years. You know, he was almost at retirement age, and it was like, I can't start over now. And I said, why not? you know, and so what do you really want to do? And we work through the blocks. And he's now so busy as a photographer that he has to make time to enjoy his life, because he loves, well, I mean, he loves what he's doing, but he also needs his own life. But he went from miserable and barely making ends meet to having so much fun in business that it's overflowing. So there's always a way, but we have to work through it. And what's blocking me is different from what's blocking you. And when I did this in a workshop recently, everybody had leaps in what they were doing, either new jobs that were more fulfilling and more money, or just money increases. Everybody, when we work through this process of releasing the blocks, because there's so much hidden and we don't know what it is. And so, and this particular man too had never expressed anger. He had been abused as a child, and here he was, almost retirement age, and had never expressed anger, and had been through counseling and was seeing a counselor while I was working with him as well. But it was with me that he broke through and made these huge red marks and felt the anger for the first time. And then that was blocking him. When you have so much anger, there's not room for the joy and the flow of all the good things in life.
Yeah. And it is basically tapping into the right brain. That's what I hear from you. I mean, this is how we can unlock our blockages, if we have a good access to the right side of our brain.
Exactly, and then connect it to the left brain. It's not either or. So the idea is that they need to communicate, to integrate, and then it opens a pathway so that the energy is all going in the same direction. And when we talk about problem solving, how it works for solving problems, including money, is that what happens is that, like, if you think of it as a weed system, okay, and if this is the ground, and this is all you're seeing are the weeds, and you pick this weed and you pick this weed, but then you haven't addressed the system underneath, and so suddenly new things pop up in other places, and you don't know that they're connected because the system is hidden underneath. That's causing new problems to emerge. So you solve this problem, and then you solve that problem, and then you solve that problem, but unless you pull it out at the root, you're not able to really solve it, and you don't know that they're connected. So we're always busy putting out fires rather than having the time to plan ahead. But if you can get to the root system that's in the unconscious, that's under the surface, then you can be free to really create. And you asked me about you know, how it affects people as well. So I had one client, for instance, who was an alcoholic, and he came to me for that. But then as we began to work together, all these other things were going on. So he was in a job with an abusive boss. He owed the IRS money. He had relationship problems that went on, everything, every area of his life. He's now a recovering alcoholic. He hasn't had drink in years. He has a professional job. He was working construction at that time. Now he has a professional job in his chosen field and that he trained for in a healthy organization. He has his debt is paid to the IRS. He has healthy investments, and he's expressing his creativity by singing in a choir that has even performed at Lincoln Center. and he does
Wow.
solo performances around the city. And eventually, I'm sure that will go beyond that. He blossomed as we removed all those blocks. Everything started to change. And so bit by bit, it doesn't happen all at once, but step by step. And then more miracles happen than one could possibly believe. But they're everyday miracles because they're open to all of us if we can move beyond the old thinking, the group thinking, the limited thinking. You know, and I talk about it as if you have one hand tied behind your back, can you climb out of a hole that you're in, or would you rather have two hands? So would you rather have a half-brain solution, just using your left brain, or would you rather use both hands, both sides of your brain, and really allow a successful solution to emerge?
Yeah, very powerful. I know, or I have heard here that you are a spiritual person. Do you have rituals yourself for yourself? Do you have a ritual that you might share with everybody?
So, yes, I have a number of rituals actually. Every morning that I start with a process of clearing my physical space, of clearing my personal space, because there's so many negative energies that we pick up from other people. Somebody frowns at us. I mean, the other day I was out in public and somebody just gave me this look like literally if looks could kill. And I thought, what? You know, and so there were studies that that if you walk through a room that 15 minutes ago somebody was angry in that room, and you don't even know that they were angry because you were outside and in a busy place, you walk through there and you're likely to get a cold within 7 days. And right now in this world, there's so much anger, there's so much fear. And so, yes, I connect with archangels. I say prayers. I put protection around myself. I do a lot of things to keep myself as clear as I can from so much fear and judgment and negativity. And I understand it. I mean, I know how difficult it is in the times that we're in. And we have to take charge of our own lives and of our own life experience, and to not blame and say, well, I can't help it. It's the bad news on television or whatever. Yes, we can help it. We always have choices. We always have the ability to not listen to the news, not watch it, not, I mean, watching is much worse than hearing or reading. And so there are levels of how much we can take in. And once those images are in our mind, they're so hard to remove. So I'm not saying be callous. We need to know what's going on. But we also need to do our part to change it, and not to just criticize it or be angry about it. And one of Stephen Schwartz, who had been a freedom rider and a lawyer in the administration, U.S. government during the civil rights era and so on, and has done a lot of research on social change and permanent social change. And he says the only way to have permanent social change is to make our own conscious, positive choices, life-affirming, positive choices every second of every day. Not to react, but to think, okay, what is that person saying to me? What's an appropriate response? I can just walk away. I can try to shift the energy, whatever. But it's each of us That's where our power is. If we're feeling powerless, our power to change the world is literally to take charge of the decisions that we make, the thoughts that we hold in our head, the words that we speak, the actions that we take. And what he said is that if you say good morning, how are your kids, to when you're picking up your laundry, or whatever, and that will go to 6 more people. That person will then say something nice to the next 6 people, who will then say something nice to the next 6 people. Do you see how that can change everything if we start focusing on how we can make a difference by being positive and kind and offering support and not always criticizing and being angry and fearful. And if we connect with the spiritual realm, and we know truly that we are loved by the spiritual realm, then there's never anything to fear, because whatever happens is for our good. And if we take it that way and look at it that way, then it really is. If we choose to look at it in a negative way, then it's not. And I'm someone who has been through it, so I'm not saying you should. I understand. I lived with abuse for 58 years. I understand you can change your life. You can change your attitude. You can change everything. If I chose to stay in blame and anger and resentment and guilt and fear, I would be shriveled up and nothing. My life has blossomed and continues to. And what could I take away from that earlier part of my life and still be me? Guarantee that I would still be me. There is no guarantee. So I'm grateful for all of it, because it has created me. It has allowed me to become who I am and to help others heal and to get out of situations that are difficult. And you were saying, what are the kinds of things that I do? One of the things that I did to get myself out of depression, I didn't take any antidepressants. What I did was I woke up every morning saying what I was grateful for, saying it out loud. We take so much for granted. I can breathe. I can walk. I have a roof over my head. I have food. I have a job. I have an income. I have a life. I can walk. I can talk. I can think. There is so much that not everybody has. And even the people who have less still have so much to be grateful for. As long as we're breathing, we have the gratitude of life and the possibility of infinite and limitless options and possibilities, unless we shut ourselves down and close ourselves off. And one of the things that I do that I'll share, because there are so many, but I'll share one that for letting go of the negative emotions. So there is something called the universal heart of love that is pure love from the universe. And I imagine and call in the universal heart of love being over my crown chakra and then surrounding me, totally engulfing me. And that being surrounded by the universal turquoise heart of love. And that being surrounded by the universal white heart of love. And then a gold grounding cord go from the bottom of my heart chakra, which is right here, into the center of Mother Earth. And that will help all of us, each of us, to release the negative emotions that we pick up from our past, from our present, anything that we want to let go of and sort of help us not take on new things, new negative feelings and thoughts. It's powerful, and I recommend it for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, thank you, Paula. Now coming to an end, unfortunately, of our so lovely conversation, I need to ask you what your gift is for the audience, how they can find you. Can you give some information concerning?
Yes, I wrote an ebook that I'm giving away free at paulajoyce.com is my website, and it's 33 tips for self-empowerment. And they're these kinds of things that I just mentioned, although that's something that I've learned since I wrote the book. But there are things that will help people to be self-empowered, to connect with their higher self, which is the source of our creativity. When we are one with our limitless higher self, we are creative. We don't have to work at it. We don't have to struggle. It is creating our lives. It is creating solutions to problems. It is creating art, music, all of the creative endeavors. And I don't make a distinction between crafts and art. I think it's sexist, and I think that men initially only had access to painting, and women did this incredible work that was demeaned by calling it craft. Some of the things that they did are just incredible and still do. So I want everyone out there who thinks that they're less than because they do a craft. I think it's a misnomer. There is so much beautiful creativity out there that we are demeaning, and I don't want anyone to demean any form of creativity that they are engaged in. So there are things like carry pink quartz crystal, because that also absorbs negative energy. And you can put it in your purse, you can put it in a pocket. There's an affirmation in this 33 tips for financial abundance to help you change your thought patterns and to receive, because we are all children of God and we are all deserving. Everybody deserves to have financial abundance. We live in a world of abundance, not scarcity, and we can all share. And if you had $1 million, wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to help feed the hungry, to help the people who are victims in Mexico of the terrible earthquake and the hurricanes in the U.S. So, and all over the world, there's so much we can help. So there are 33 ideas, that things that people can do that will help them emerge as an empowered person and a creative person.
Thank you. Listening to you, I was just watching your image and my image, and for you it gets lighter and lighter where you are and where I am.
Oh, it's getting darker.
Yes. Isn't this beautiful that we can talk here from so many different angles of the world, and I see the evening begins for me, and I don't know what time it is for you. But I was just seeing those two images while receiving your information about the 33 steps, or how do you call it? The 33
tips for self-empowerment.
Okay.
But
okay.
I do love I do look for signs and symbols, and even though there's a logical reason, I do like the meaning of that is, you're closing out this portion of the interview, and so it's getting darker.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Paula, thank you so much for being here for us today, and thank you everybody for listening and for watching and for being here as well. Paula, thank you and have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's my honor and pleasure. Thank you. And you have a beautiful evening.